Hi, I'm Morgan,
And I'm Megan,
twins and host of M&M Chat.
a monthly podcast that brings together our many commonalities: motherhood, farm life, fitness, chasing our passions, and goal chat.
It is our goal to create a show that is positive, real, and fun. Now let's dive into this month's episode. Today our episode is called 3, 2, 1 Record, and we are live today, which is crazy. Actually, the day that this goes live is our birthday. So like we mentioned, we're twins, and we decided to launch our podcast on our birthday to celebrate. And so thank you for hopping on this crazy train with us. We are excited for this podcast journey and where this will take us. So today we are really going to just introduce to you ourselves. So many of you probably know who we are because this is episode 1. So most likely it's our friends and family who are listening and watching. But for those of you who might join this journey a couple months from now, we just wanted to introduce ourselves so that you guys could get caught up with who we are.
Yeah, so like Morgan said, we're twins, and so you might see the resemblance if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to our voices. It might be honestly kind of hard to tell who's talking when, but you'll just kind of get used to that as you go through our podcast with us, because I remember as a little child or a little girl when we would talk to our parents on the phone, and it'd be so funny because they'd be like, am I talking to Megan or am I talking to Morgan? So a little fun fact about us is we have very similarities in our appearance and in our voices.
Yes. So growing up, we live in Iowa, and we live just outside of Iowa City a little ways. So we grew up with a farming background. So my grandparents raised cow-calf, had a cow-calf operation. They also had pigs. But really, my grandpa started to retire when we were in elementary school. So we remember that life just a little bit. And we come from a blended family. So we also lived in town with my mom as well. So we kind of had both lives. We knew how to be town kids, but we knew how to be farm kids as well. And we grew up kind of more on the show side of things is where we really started having an interest in agriculture. And so we showed in 4-H, and we had cattle and sheep, and that kind of is also where we started our communication journey, because we would be encouraged to do presentations, and
I'm sure 4-H leaders would be pretty proud of us that we took those presentations that we did that we necessarily didn't want to do at the time. We thought they were kind of silly and pointless, but we're using all of that to now, in our careers and in our passions, we're using what we learned from those presentations.
Yes, definitely. So in this podcast, we'll be talking about all sorts of things, which we'll get into in a little bit. But once we graduated from high school, so growing up, Megan and I did everything together.
As you can imagine, we were competitive, we're twins, and we just have a lot of similarities in what we do like. And so we did have very similar passions in high school. We both did soccer. We both, like Morgan said, were in 4-H. We had the same friend group. And so we honestly did pretty much everything together. And when we went to college, we actually both went to Iowa State. And that's when we really started to get our own paths. We started kind of figuring out what we wanted to do separately. Like, what was our career goals? What did we feel like God was leading us to? And it looked very different in college, and that was a little bit hard for us, to be honest, because we weren't used to that. But it helped us to grow up so much and develop our own personalities and our own just lifestyle and how we wanted our lives to be. But we do miss some of that collaboration and some of that twin activities that we used to do that we loved and enjoyed so much. So that is leading us into why we are wanting to do a podcast, and where that journey we are hoping to take, just from us enjoying and spending time together and kind of similar passions, but in bringing it all together.
And today, the boys, we both have a son, and so today they're both with their dads, but on most occasions it will probably be during nap time that we're recording, or during playtime. You might even see occasionally a little kid run through the screen. So we are going to really just take this as a time to get together and just to drink our coffee and have some nice chats and just collaborate, like Megan said. We have so much stuff that just growing up in that 4-H presentations and kind of sharing our passions, we have so much that we want to talk about and to chat about throughout our journey with podcasts. So let's talk about now where we headed into our separate journeys through college. So I studied agriculture communications. I went into college undecided. I honestly didn't really know what I wanted to do.
And I remember Morgan going through that journey of trying to figure out which career path she wanted to take.
It was a challenge for me at the time, for sure. It took a lot of prayers and just trusting God that He had a path. And even now, Megan and I were talking the other day, God works in just such mysterious ways, and He has a better idea for our path than we do.
I feel like it's stepping stones.
Yeah.
Like you can see those stones that God has placed in your path and the guidance that He is putting in front of you.
So I took an ag exploratory class that really helped me to narrow down what I wanted to be my focus. And we had professors come from the different departments and share with us. And I ended up deciding on agriculture communications, which was under agriculture education umbrella. And in that area, you can pick 2 areas of focus. So I did animal science because of coming up from a beef background and showing cattle. And then I also did horticulture. I actually ended up, all of the animal science classes filled up really fast. I mean, you can expect that being Iowa State and being an agriculture school, being vet med. All of the animal science classes filled up super fast. So I ended up accidentally taking an intro to greenhouse management, and I knew nothing about plants. Like, we had a garden growing up. Mom always planted tomatoes, lettuce, peas, things like that. But it was like probably the size of this porch right here that Megan's got. Like, all of us love to grow food, but we don't necessarily have the greenest thumbs.
Yeah.
And Mom, I bet you would agree with us on that. But I just fell in love with working with the plants, working with the soil. It was so therapeutic to me. I ended up taking some more classes, and my area of focus ended up changing to horticulture, and animal science was my second area of focus.
And to be honest, being Morgan's twin, at first I was like, well, that's cool. I was like, that's neat, like a good focus, but I didn't know that she'd actually do a lot with it. So you'll hear on the podcast everything she's doing with that horticulture major or minor that she had. And so it's really cool, like we were saying, how God kind of weaves things in for us.
So then just kind of a short rest of my story here for college. I ended up having a couple internships. One was with Iowa Farm Bureau, and that's kind of what led me to my position now. So now I work for Linn County Farm Bureau as an Ag in the Classroom coordinator, and I visit schools, preschool through high school, educating about agriculture. So even though Megan and I had different degrees, we kind of do similar things now, and I don't have a classroom per se, but I do visit students on a daily basis, and I share about my passions for agriculture, so it kind of all comes full circle. It's really neat to see how it all kind of pieces together. So Megan, tell us a little bit about your college background and where you started.
So like a lot of kids, and like Morgan said, she didn't know what she wanted to do when she went into college and went into Iowa State. Honestly, I had a different major going into college too. I started off as pre-athletic training in the kinesiology department, and I wanted to work with possibly injuries. I didn't necessarily want to work with the sports right away, just because that's a little bit more intimidating to me, just because they're usually really athletic and they're really good at what they do, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be taken seriously. So I was looking more into working with older patients who maybe had injuries like a hip surgery or different things. That was kind of where I wanted to go, but at Iowa State they had pre-athletic training. And so I was trying to consider what I wanted to do after that. Well, one semester of that, I loved the fitness part of it. I loved the body like physical therapy. I loved how our body moves and everything that
the biology classes she had to take.
Yeah.
She would come home with like books.
Yeah, and the anatomy class, like just as semester 1, I was like, what? So I didn't know if that's necessarily what I wanted to do, because after the 4 years, I would then have to do the graduate program, and I just didn't know if I really had the heart to go that way through for it. So as a kid, I always wanted to teach, and so one day, it's amazing how all of a sudden you can just have a switch. One day I was laying in bed and I was like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I was just like really worked up and anxious about it. And it's not that I didn't enjoy it. It's just I couldn't see myself going through that much schooling. And for those of you who do, like, I applaud you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I definitely give you credit for it, because it's not easy. And so I have a passion for educating and for teaching and talking with people and just working with others, and I still wanted to serve, and I still wanted to do something that was super powerful and meaningful. And so that's when I decided to switch to teaching. And as a kid, I always played school.
Oh yeah.
I always wanted to be a teacher.
We would ask the teachers. We were those students that were like goody.
We were the
goody
class
two-shoe.
pet.
We would ask our teachers for any copies that they didn't use that they were just going to recycle. We would ask them for those additional copies and take them home and play school with them.
And we would ask them if we could grade any of the worksheets. We would do all of that, ask for if we could help them. And so I definitely had a passion for just teaching and seeing people learn and grow. And so that leads me into becoming an elementary teacher. And I am a first grade teacher, so I work with the littles, and I love it. The passion for school is just really cool to see. They are always excited to learn. But I was starting to miss some of that fitness, some of that exercise, and that science behind it. And just bringing it all together, I actually decided to join Beachbody and become a coach. And so now I work with kind of the best of both. I'm a teacher, so I have that passion, but then I'm still able to be conscious about what health looks like and teach people about being healthy and how can we be preventative before we end up needing that physical therapy. So I kind of full circled it around, and like Morgan said, you might see on Facebook some of the things that we both do, Facebook and Instagram. Morgan shares a lot of blog posts, and I like to do live videos, bringing in that teaching aspect and bringing in that fitness and nutrition aspect, putting it all together. So you will probably see a combination of all of that throughout our podcasts.
So now let's talk about why did we create this podcast. Okay, so first of all, it's called M&M Chat. So we have a brother whose name is Michael, and my mom used to call us M&M and M. And it would be all of us if she'd say, hey, come to supper, M&M and M. And so also with Megan and I being twins, a lot of times at school, people would say, hey, M&M, or we just always had that kind of follow us around. And so M&M Chat was just a perfect name. We brainstormed, we came up with so many different ideas. One that we really liked was called Tangled Weeds, because we kind of want to tangle together our passions and talk
life
about...
can be messy.
Yep, and life can be so messy. But really, M&M Chat, all of a sudden, like you said, just switched. Megan mentioned that, and we were like, that's a really cool name because it takes us back to our roots. We can talk about our interests and our goals and entrepreneurship, motherhood. We can really not be pigeonholed to one topic. And so that's what you'll get at this podcast is we are going to just dive into things that we're interested in. Each theme or each episode will have a new theme that we'll kind of focus on. But really, we just want to be fun and positive.
And have a place for people to just come and have a lighthearted listen. Somewhere that they can maybe just smile and get some laughter, because I'm sure we're going to have lots of laughing and just funny things that, since one, we're newbies, and two, we want this to be just as real and authentic as possible. So we're not planning on doing a lot of editing. Like Morgan said, you might see littles running around. But we are just really wanting this to be a positive place for people to come and tune into.
We want to build a community. So if there's ever anything that you guys want to hear, or if there's something that you really enjoy when we talk about, give us your feedback. We'd love to incorporate your take on things if you have questions or things like that. We'd love to include those in our podcast as well.
Most definitely. speaking of names, so we were often called M&M, and then with Michael, when we were all around M&M. So I think it'd be fun to just kind of talk about some other nicknames that we've had in the past. Morgan, what kind of nicknames have you had?
Well, I get called Mo a lot, so a lot of times Mo is a big one, or a ball twin. So we have different names now because we're both married. Oh, we haven't even mentioned our husbands. Okay, so back up just a second. So my last name is, well, I guess I don't have to sell my last name on YouTube, but but our maiden name is Ball, and we would be called Ball twins growing up, so that was a big one. Or like one time,
and you can just imagine what kind of nicknames.
Yeah,
came
maybe
from
that
Ball
will be
twins.
another episode. And then on my soccer jersey, sometimes it would say Mo Ball, so that was, and it would say May Ball, so that was another one too. Megan actually had more nicknames than I did, though.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about our husbands here in a second too, but my nicknames, I had quite a few. I had May, or Mayball. I had Meg. I had Maggie.
My mom calls her Granny because she's always late and slow.
So Granny was one, and my husband has started calling me that a little bit, and he just will be like, come on, Granny, let's go. So Granny just being that, I guess I was slow moving in the morning, my mom would say, come on, we gotta get ready for school. Come on, Granny. Oh, Ethel, because Granny and Ethel kind of go together. And I didn't really like it as a kid, to be honest. I'd be like, I'm not Granny, I'm coming. But now I think it's kind of funny. Side note, before we were born, my mom and dad were trying to come up with names for us, and they didn't know we were twins until a month or so before they had us, because they just didn't have as much science almost 27 years ago, and so it took a while for them to discover that there was two of us. And so at first my mom was like, well, how about we go with Felicia and Stacia?
My dad goes, I don't know how to spell it.
so they went with something a little more simple, Megan and Morgan, which I think is a little too close together. I love our names, love them, but oftentimes people will get us confused because Megan and Morgan are
even
very
people
similar.
who don't know I'm a twin.
Yeah, and even if we have different last names now. The other day I had an article in the newspaper and it said Megan with Morgan's last name.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. So then we had Felicia and Stacia as optional names, but they went with Megan and Morgan, and so now my husband Kyle has taken it upon himself to start calling me Felicia.
So I guess I'm Stacia.
Yeah, so I guess I seem more like a Felicia. But those are mostly our nicknames. I'm sure there's probably others too.
For some reason, she gets all the nicknames because her husband also calls her Boss Man.
Yeah,
and
Boss Man. I'm like, man?
When they first started dating, yeah, he would always be like, I don't know, I gotta talk to the Boss Man.
Yeah.
So now that's a good segue to our husbands. So Megan, if you want to go first, Megan's been with Kyle for a long time. They're high school sweethearts. So if you want to talk about Kyle, and then I'll jump into my relationship with Tyler.
Yeah, so Kyle and I actually started dating my senior year of high school. He's a couple years older than me, a couple grades above, but we both went to the same high school. So I've known Kyle for a really long time. We both showed cattle in 4-H, and we actually were very competitive with each other. I always wanted to try to beat him. He wanted to try to beat me. And we'd go to shows, distant shows. We'd both go to Nebraska and show. And so it was just kind of fun. But since he was a couple years older, I just knew him as Kyle. He shows cattle. We were in the same 4-H club. Well, as we got older and we started becoming more like closer to going to college and stuff, Morgan actually became friends with him and was...
I think we had the same PE class.
Yeah, I think there was some time in high school that they got connected, and so she became friends with Kyle, and he was single and I was single, so she's connected us and was like, why don't you guys see if something's there? So we did, and I texted him, and our very first date was a figure 8 racing, and so that is our story from where it began. And I was a senior in high school, and we both went to Iowa State. Kyle was at Iowa State already when I got there. So we had all of our college experience together. So we're kind of unique in the fact that we did make it work. We've had lots of back and forth of distance and non-distance, but we've made it work every single time. And so then Kyle moves back home to farm and to work for his agricultural job that he does. He works with Precision Ag, and I was still at Iowa State, but we made that long distance work. And so when I came back home to student teach and then get my teaching job, that's when we decided to get married, and here we are. We've been together in August. It will be 10 years already, which is crazy to think. And we just had a son about 8 weeks ago now, and his name is Andrew. And so we are just figuring out parenthood together, and we're in that season. And so we're brand new at being a mom and a dad, and we love to travel. Fun fact, we've been to California together, we've been to Australia together, we love to go on road trips. So that's a little fun fact about Kyle and I. Morgan, how about you and Tyler? Where does your story start?
Yes, so we also know each other from high school. He was a senior when I was a freshman in high school. And actually, funny story, so we went to prom in the same group, but not together. So I actually went with his good friend, and we ended up being in the same prom group, and then nothing happened after that. We lost touch. I went to college. He went to Corkwood and started walking here, and then it was the summer before my senior year of college. My mom lives pretty close to his parents, and so Megan and I would go running on those back roads back there by his house, and I saw his white truck sitting out front that we actually took to prom that year, and
She loves that white truck.
I do love that white truck. He can't ever get rid of that white truck. It's been in our story since the beginning, since that prom trip that we took.
Doesn't Dean even have a little white truck?
He does have a little white truck.
Bouncy white truck.
Yeah, and we took engagement photos with it. We took our announcement photos for Dean, and we took wedding photos with it. So yeah, that truck is staying in the family. And what's funny is actually he got rid of that truck. So I texted him, and I messaged him on Facebook. I didn't have his number at the time. So I messaged him on Facebook, and I said, "Hey, is that your white truck? I see it when I go running." And so that's kind of how we got reacquainted, and he said, yeah, actually though, I sold that truck in high school right when he was graduating, and then he missed it. He wished he wouldn't have sold it. He actually found it again and bought it back, and so it's kind of funny how even the truck came back.
Yeah, that's really cool that he found it, because it could have been long gone.
Yeah. So we started talking back and forth after that, and I still had one more year of college. So that year he made so many trips to Ames, but not in the white truck. That truck, I don't know if I trust it going 2 hours. But he would come to Ames, and we had so much fun. We went to football games. Every weekend we tried somewhere new. We would go to the apple orchard down the highway there. We would go on lots of walks, and we just talked about dreams and like what we could see as our future. And so when I graduated and came back home, I started walking back home. I knew we were dating at the time, so I knew I wanted to come back to the area because that's where he was settled. Since he's 4 years older than me, he was already had a good job and everything. So actually then we moved in together, and he proposed with my favorite cow, Josie. So then a little fun fact about Tyler and I is that he didn't grow up in agriculture, but he has just dove headfirst into with the farm with my dad and with our cows. And so we have recently purchased 7 cows, and so we have 7 of our own, and hopefully just going to grow with Dad's operation. And I grow cut flowers. So Tyler was the big dream. It helped me to get that dream into a reality, was the flowers. He says he's the labor and I'm the face of the flowers. So he helps me with the cut flowers that I grow in the summertime. So a little fun fact about us, I'm sure you'll hear me talk more about flowers. And we have a 1-year-old. He is actually just turned 15 months. We just had his 15-month appointment, and his name is Dean, and that's my dad's middle name. So that's kind of cool that we were able to carry on that tradition. But he is running around everywhere right now. He literally just climbed the couch this week, so I'm in trouble because he is. I have a feeling
he's on the move.
He's going to be ornerier than I was, and Tyler sounds like he was a pretty easygoing baby, but Dean has no fear, so I think I'm going to have my hands full with that one. But
I think I probably will too, because knowing my husband, he's pretty ornery.
Yeah.
And if Andrew takes after his dad at all.
I could see it.
He's already got a cute little grin with a dimple, so.
Yeah, that picture you sent the other day, I'm like, oh boy, he's gonna turn eyes.
Yeah, so Morgan said that her role on the farming operation now is they have some cows that they have taken on, and they are soon to be calving here in the next month or so. One of them actually already did. And so that's coming up for them with the farming aspect. And Kyle and I also farm. We do not have any cows of our own yet, but we have acres and we have row crops. We do corn and soybeans and some wheat, some rye. We do all of that. And Kyle actually has gotten into spraying too. So he sprays for himself and then does some custom spraying. And you'll hear more about our farming, and I think we plan to do a little bit more of the agriculture in the next episode. So we just wanted to tell you kind of our roles with that, but I would consider us both farm wives and really trying to get involved into that
Share
agriculture.
that story of agriculture. Because we live so close to Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, it's really important to share where our food comes from, because it's an industry where we all eat and we all care about what we're feeding our families. So we'll talk about that a little bit as our podcast journey continues.
Yeah, so let's just wrap it up here with what we plan to do for future episodes. So we hope that you've enjoyed this first episode, and we just plan to continue talking about motherhood, and we plan to do agriculture, more about our careers, some passions, a little bit of goals, fitness. We would talk about fitness and nutrition, flowers. We'll talk about it all. God, we love just including faith into our journeys. That is really what leads us, and we know that we wouldn't be able to do anything that we do without God. And so we want to talk about faith and Christianity, and how we got to become in a relationship with God. We'll talk about that.
We have some fun episodes planned for this summer where we'll talk about recipes that we enjoy, drinks that we like, and so we're going to really...
Maybe even farm meals, like on-the-go meals. I'm becoming better at that because it's definitely a skill.
Yeah, this last year she brought meals on wheels for sure. So we're going to talk about it also. Each episode, we hope you enjoy and just get something out of it, but mostly just fun and positivity, and we might talk about some hot topics too.
Yeah.
But we'll always keep it light, and we like to come at things with an open mind and an open view.
Yeah.
So just join us each. We will be right now just doing one a month because of littles.
Yeah. And figuring everything out.
But this first one you can binge because we're going to upload 3 to begin with.
Yeah, and if you liked this episode, if you liked the podcast, we'd love it if you shared it with friends and family, if you
posted
tagged
on
us.
Facebook.
Yeah, if you followed or subscribed, just so that we can get this out to more people and just see where this goes. And we would have high expectations, but we have also kind of real expectations to see if this is something that we want to pursue long term or not. So,
well, Megan, we hit play on our first episode, so way to go. Woo!
All right.